Shalom, shalom, beautiful people. My name is El Chanok, and I'm doing this video to give you a little bit more insight of what I'm going to be dealing on my podcast, Type of Man. So this podcast, Type of Man, is going to be dealing with biblical masculinity, right? Masculinity from Yahuwah's perspective, which is backed and confirmed by every account that we read in scripture of the men who were devout, right? Who served Yahuwah and were in tune with the masculine component that was pleasing in Yahuwah's eyes according to the Torah. Now, there are two main things, and I know I expressed this in the last video, but I want to make this video a little bit shorter, but more kind of to the point. Gibor and Zakar. These are two of the main components of how Yah desires man to be in his likeness and in his image mentally, right? How he moves, how he thinks, how he not only treats his woman, i.e. the bride, but also how he treats himself, how he understands himself, right? Because again, the whole concept of man came from Yah's thought to recreate himself. Now, I want to start with Gibor. And this is something that, when I explain this to my 2-year-old son, I tell him a Gibor is one who is resilient, who prevails in the midst of adversity. It's one who prevails. It's one who prevails not only just in the midst of physical adversity. See, when we think masculinity, our mind always goes to physical. But I want us to switch gears from just thinking about the physical to the emotional, to the mental, right? A person who is a Gibor, and by the way, Gibor is one of the 7 spirits of the Most High, according to Isaiah chapter 11. But a Gibor, yes, technically speaking, he's a warrior. But what makes him a warrior is not just his physical component, it's his mental and his emotional component of mastery and understanding himself, right? So, of course, these things allow him to connect with his family, allow him to connect with his brothers and sisters, those around him, whether he's working a job, right? His employees, right? His co-workers, I should say. In this same type of divine masculine energy that's composed, right? That's not suppressed, that's able to express in a way that builds up others because he's confident in himself. Confident, not cocky, not arrogant in a negative way, but he understands really the king he is, internally and externally. So that's the Gibor. Second one would be the Zakar, which goes back to, again, explaining this to my 2-year-old son. What is a Zakar? A Zakar, the word Zakar in the Hebrew means to remember. But when you look deeper into it, it also corresponds to the word male in the English. So what is that telling us? That's telling us that males are called as Zakars to remember the accounts of Yahuwah and ultimately act upon them. Because when you look at the actual definition, it's to remember and act upon, right? So a Zakar is one who, again, mental and emotional components to understand what he's gone through, to apply it and learn every single day, whether the experience is good or bad. So technically speaking, the Gibor and the Zakar, they work hand in hand. And it all goes back to the mental and the emotional component a man must have to be able to rule and govern his family according to what we're given in the scriptures. And you see this in accounts like King Daud, also known as King David. You see this when his son died. He had to be able to be in a place mentally to, withstand after an action that he did caused one of his children to die. Same thing with Yosef, when he was sold into slavery by his brothers and ultimately sent to prison. He had to be in a emotional place of understanding himself to be able to overcome and, watch this, prevail in that type of adversity. So again, these are components that help us to identify and connect with the Most High, us being men walking in his image and in his likeness. So again, we're gonna be covering a lot more things, but I wanted to just speak this in this video to show you all this is beneficial, not just for men, but for women too. For women to understand the responsibilities to A, look for it in a man if you're not married, and 2, to maybe even educate your ish or your husband on if you are married and these things are lacking, to bring education and awareness. Because as men, yes, we definitely got to humble ourselves and see that even though Yahuwah calls us to be providers, he also calls us to humble ourselves and to love our women as Mashiach loved the set apart assembly, right? For some of you all who don't understand that, as who you would call Christ loved the body, right? So saying all this to say that this is what we're going to be dealing with. And in it, we're going to learn a lot more about how to really engage with and to thrive in our masculinity in the positive. So I love you all, and stay posted. We're going to be definitely posting more on this page. This page is specifically dedicated to this work for men, building up that masculine energy, that divine masculine energy that Yahuwah has created us to be in his image and in his likeness. We're going to manage these emotions. We're going to understand ourselves. We're going to understand our women. We're going to understand our children. We're going to apply everything that our Yahuwah has given us from the foundation of the earth, written out in the Torah. Shalom.